The footage flickered to life on every human-controlled network, overriding firewalls and protocols meant to prevent enemy propaganda. A grainy, static-filled image resolved into a cold, metallic chamber. Harsh, artificial light illuminated the lone figure, shackled to an upright frame. Her body bore the unmistakable signs of torture, cuts, bruises, and the telltale scorch marks of an electroshock whip. Yet, even in that state, her head remained high, defiance burning in her weary eyes. The alien voices droned, their guttural tones laced with cruel amusement. Though they spoke in their native tongue, the intent was clear. This was a message, a warning. The translation software embedded in the broadcast scrolled words across the screen. Asterisk, humanity's defiance ends today. Your species will kneel, or it will perish. Asterisk. Then came the first strike. The whip cracked against flesh, sending a ripple of agony through the woman's body. A lesser being might have screamed. She only clenched her jaw. Blow after blow landed, but she refused to break. The audience watching from across the solar system, military outposts, hidden resistance cells, and even civilians on Earth, witnessed something beyond pain. They saw resolve. Commander Jack Carter stood in silence, arms crossed, jaw tight. The glow of the screen cast sharp shadows across his face, but his eyes remained locked on the broadcast. Around him, his team of seasoned operatives, men who had survived the worst battlefields humanity had ever known, watched with the same grim intensity. No one spoke. No one looked away. The torture dragged on, each moment heavier than the last. The woman, Lieutenant Hannah Graves, once part of the elite Phantom Recon Unit, had been declared missing in action 3 months prior. They had assumed she was dead, lost in the chaos of an Empire raid. But here she was alive, suffering, and still refusing to give them the satisfaction of surrender. Then came the final act. The alien executioner stepped forward, holding a sleek, curved blade, an instrument of ceremonial precision. The creature spoke, its voice twisted with a grotesque mockery of reverence. The translation appeared, asterisk, humanity, witness the fate of your warriors. You cannot protect them. You cannot save them. Asterisk. The blade flashed. A clean, deliberate strike. Blood spilled, and for the first time, Hannah's body went slack. The transmission ended. Silence filled the war room. Sergeant Alex Monroe exhaled sharply through his nose, fingers curled into a fist. They just declared war on us. We were already at war, Carter muttered. Not like this. Monroe's voice was steel. They wanted to break us, to make us scared. They don't understand us. Carter's voice was cold, controlled, but the fire in his eyes told another story. He turned to the others, Dawson, the tech specialist, Ramirez, the demolitions expert, and Brooks, their sniper. Each of them carried the same expression, a silent, burning rage. We're going after her. Sir. Dawson frowned. I hate to say it, but she's gone. Carter's eyes didn't waver. We don't leave our own behind. We don't even know where they took her, Monroe pointed out. Dawson cracked his knuckles, already at his station, screens filling with lines of data. We'll find out. They replayed the footage, not as men grieving a fallen comrade, but as predators analyzing prey. They noted every detail, the specific frequency of the broadcast signal, the metallic resonance of the chamber, the subtle reflection in the executioner's armor. Each clue led them closer to the answer. The Galactic Empire had tried to be clever, but Carter's team was smarter. It wasn't about raw strength, it was about adaptation. Within hours, they had traced the transmission's origin to a hidden Empire facility on a remote outpost in the Nix Nebula. They thought they could use her death to demoralize us, Brooks murmured. Carter's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. They just signed their own death warrant. The mission brief was short. No grand speeches, no unnecessary theatrics. They knew what needed to be done. Their objective was twofold: extract Hannah's remains and erase the facility from existence. Not just as retribution, but as a message. Humanity does not break. As they geared up, the weight of the moment settled over them. This wasn't about vengeance. It wasn't about anger. It was about principle. The Galactic Empire had underestimated the depth of human resilience. They saw weakness in flesh, failing to realize that true strength lay in the unyielding will of those who refused to accept defeat. Carter checked his rifle, the familiar weight grounding him. The mission ahead was dangerous, possibly suicidal. But there was no hesitation in any of them. The Empire had drawn a line in the sand. Now it was time to cross it. Pain had been her reality. It was supposed to end. But it didn't. Darkness swallowed her, yet something stirred deep within, a current of raw energy coursing through shredded muscle and fractured bone. The sensation was alien, unnatural. Her lungs, which had collapsed in her final moments, expanded with a sharp intake of air. Her heart, silenced by the precision of an executioner's blade, found its rhythm once more. Nerve endings sparked to life, flooding her body with agony, and something else. Power. Hannah Graves opened her eyes. She was still in the chamber. The same sterile walls loomed overhead, the same cold metal pressed against her back. A dim, artificial glow cast flickering shadows, and in the distance, the murmur of alien voices carried through the air. Her restraints, once locked in place, had released upon her death. They hadn't expected her to move again. Why would they? Her hands trembled as she pressed them to her abdomen, expecting to find a wound, a gaping tear, where the blade had ended her life. Instead, there was only smooth skin, faintly warm, as if newly formed. It didn't make sense. She had died. She had felt it. And yet, here she was, heart-pounding, breath sharp, eyes scanning the room with a mind that should no longer exist. Footsteps echoed from beyond the steel doorway. Hannah forced herself still, listening. The aliens were returning, unaware of what had just transpired. She didn't have time to question how she was alive. She only had time to act. She reached for the nearest object, a sharp metal shard from the execution platform, its edge still coated in her dried blood. The irony of using her own death as a weapon wasn't lost on her. Her muscles ached, her movements slower than they should have been, but the sensation was fading. Strength was returning, a surge of energy unlike anything she had felt before. The first alien entered the chamber, eyes flicking toward the lifeless form they had expected to find. His moment of confusion was his last. Hannah struck fast, the shard piercing the soft tissue beneath his jaw, severing arteries and silencing his alarm before it could rise. He slumped to the ground, gurgling. Adrenaline drove her forward. The second guard barely had time to register his companion's collapse before she was upon him. A precise strike to the throat, a violent twist of his weapon from his grasp, and then he was down. Her body, though it had been broken, moved with lethal efficiency. She didn't understand it, but she wouldn't waste it. Blood pooled around her boots. She exhaled, steadying herself. The reality of her survival pressed against the edges of her mind, demanding answers she couldn't afford to search for. Not yet. The Empire had paraded her execution as a message. They had broadcast her death for all to see. If that transmission had reached human hands, then Carter had seen it. And if Carter had seen it, he was coming. The realization anchored her. Her team wouldn't believe what had happened to her. She didn't believe it herself. But if she could reach them before the Empire realized its mistake, before they sent reinforcements to erase this anomaly, then she had a chance. They had a chance. She stripped the fallen guards of their weapons, securing a compact plasma rifle and a combat blade. The weight of the weapons felt right in her grip, instinct overriding hesitation. The facility was vast, but she had studied enough Imperial strongholds to know its weak points. Escape wasn't impossible. It was only a matter of speed. She moved through the corridors with calculated precision, keeping to the shadows, every footstep measured. The Empire's arrogance was evident in their lack of security. They believed she was dead. Their mistake. Alarms hadn't sounded. The facility remained eerily calm, the hum of distant machinery the only indication of life. She kept moving, pushing through the lingering aches in her body, her mind fixated on one objective, extraction. Then voices. Low, urgent, speaking in clipped alien tones. She pressed against the cold wall, straining to listen. The conversation was laced with unease. Something about anomalies. About bio-readings that made no sense. About her. They knew. The realization sent a surge of urgency through her. She was no longer just an execution, she was a problem. The Empire didn't tolerate problems. If they had noticed her vital signs returning, they wouldn't waste time trying to study her. They would erase her completely. She tightened her grip on the plasma rifle, adjusting its charge settings. She had to move faster. A ventilation shaft. Small, narrow, but navigable. She climbed inside, pulling the grate back into place. The metal walls vibrated with the movement of troops below, their voices sharp, urgent. The Empire had thrived on fear, but now it was feeling a taste of its own medicine. Whatever had happened to her wasn't just a fluke. It was something they hadn't planned for. Something that terrified them. She reached a junction, glancing down through a grated opening. Below, an alien officer stood before a console, screens displaying security footage, scrolling data. She squinted, focusing on the readouts. Heat signatures. One of them brighter than the others. A pulse stronger, more erratic. Hers. They were tracking her, but they didn't understand what they were tracking. She dropped from the shaft, landing behind the officer in a crouch. Before he could react, her blade found his spine. He slumped against the console, his last breath wheezing past his lips. She scanned the displays, searching for external communication terminals. If she could override their system, send a distress signal. There. A secured channel, encrypted but not impenetrable. She accessed it, fingers flying across the alien interface, her training in enemy systems paying off. The encryption resisted at first, then cracked beneath her persistence. A message short-coded but unmistakable. Carter. Alive. Moving. Facility compromised. ***. She sent it. Now she waited. The alarm blared. Red lights flooded the corridor. The Empire had caught up. She turned, weapon raised, breath steady. Carter would come. She just had to survive until then. The dropship cut through the void, its black hull blending seamlessly with the emptiness of space. Inside, Carter and his team moved with quiet precision, each motion honed by years of experience. There was no unnecessary talk, no wasted movement. The mission was clear: get in, recover Hannah's body, and erase the facility from existence. That had been the plan. But now everything had changed. Dawson sat at the terminal, his fingers working across the interface with calculated speed. The distress signal had been short, its encryption crude but unmistakable. It was Hannah's code. Not a mimic, not a trick. It was her. Alive. Somehow. "This doesn't make sense," Dawson muttered, scanning the data. "I ran the numbers 5 times. It's her biosignature, but the readings are wrong." "How wrong?" Carter asked, adjusting the strap of his rifle. "Her vitals are too strong. Oxygen intake, cardiac output, metabolic levels, all through the roof. These aren't the stats of someone who barely survived execution. This is something else." Carter didn't hesitate. "Then we adapt." Monroe checked his sidearm, his expression unreadable. "You really think this is her? Not some Imperial trick?" "She wouldn't have sent that signal unless she knew we'd understand," Carter said. "That means she's waiting." Brooks, their sniper, exhaled slowly. "Then we better not keep her waiting." The dropship shuddered as it neared the facility's outer defenses. Empire outposts were designed to be fortresses, but they weren't invincible. Human ingenuity had a way of turning weaknesses into openings. The stealth coding masked their approach, the jamming signals scrambled enemy sensors. The moment they breached the perimeter, there would be no second chances. The doors hissed open. They moved fast, sweeping through the darkened corridors like wraiths. The facility was eerily quiet. No alarms, no patrols in sight. That wasn't a relief, it was a warning. Dawson checked the system. They pulled most of their forces back toward the command center. "That's where she is." "They're boxing her in," Monroe muttered. "Standard containment procedure. Whatever's going on, they don't want it getting out." Carter pressed forward. They followed the heat signatures, moving with relentless precision. They didn't have time for caution. Then movement. A squad of Imperial soldiers rounded the corner, their weapons already raised. Carter's team moved as one. The first shot took the lead alien in the throat, a muffled gurgle, all he could manage before he dropped. Brooks picked off the second before he could react. Monroe surged forward, driving his knife into the armor gap of the third, twisting sharply before yanking it free. The last one hesitated. Dawson put 2 rounds into his chest before he could recover. The bodies hit the ground. No time to waste. They pressed on, passing rooms filled with empty medical equipment, containment units, and monitoring systems displaying erratic bio readings. Whatever had happened to Hannah, the Empire had been tracking it. They had no explanation. Then ahead, another firefight, but not theirs. Plasma bolts sizzled against the walls. Carter caught sight of Hannah through the chaos. She moved with lethal efficiency, her stolen weapon cutting through enemy ranks, her body unhindered by what should have been fatal wounds. She saw them. Recognition flickered in her eyes, but she didn't break focus. She turned, put 3 rounds into the nearest alien, then pushed forward. Carter didn't hesitate. Move. They joined the fray, the tide of battle shifting instantly. Monroe took point, his shotgun a thunderous roar, in the confined corridor. Brooks provided cover, each shot precise, bodies dropping with every pull of the trigger. Dawson hacked the nearest console, rerouting security protocols, locking down blast doors to cut off reinforcements. Hannah reached them, breath steady, stance unshaken. Carter met her gaze. "Lieutenant." She gave a grim nod. "Took you long enough." The moment was brief. The enemy regrouped, forcing them back toward the containment wing. The Empire wasn't just trying to kill Hannah. They were trying to contain whatever she had become. Dawson worked fast. Exit plans compromised. They locked the hangars. "We make our own exit," Monroe said, reloading. Hannah's voice was sharp. "You don't understand. They know what happened to me. They can't let me leave." Carter's eyes narrowed. "Then we make sure they don't have a choice." The final push began. The facility trembled as the Empire scrambled its last defenses. But human adaptability had already won. The Empire had planned for prisoners, not for soldiers who refused to die. And now they would pay the price. The facility was collapsing around them. The Empire had activated its fail-safes, initiating a full containment protocol. The air vibrated with the hum of lockdown sequences, reinforced barriers sealing off entire sections, automated turrets deploying from hidden compartments. This wasn't just an attempt to stop them. It was a last-ditch effort to erase any evidence that Hannah had ever existed. Carter led the team forward, his mind calculating every possible route. Their original exit was gone, locked down beyond their ability to breach in time. The secondary route Dawson had mapped was now a dead end, caved in by structural detonations. That left only one option: force their way through the main command center, override the security systems manually, and take control of the facility's emergency evacuation protocols. Monroe fired 2 quick shots, dropping an Imperial soldier before he could trigger an alarm. "They're bottlenecking us," he muttered. "We need to break through now, or we're done." Hannah reloaded her stolen rifle. "Then we stop playing defense." Dawson pulled up the schematics on his wrist interface, eyes scanning rapidly. "There's a power relay feeding into the central grid. If we overload it, we'll shut down their containment measures." Brooks covered the rear, his rifle aimed down the length of the corridor. "How much time do you need?" Dawson's fingers worked across his console. 2 minutes. Carter nodded. "You've got 1." They moved, cutting through enemy forces with brutal efficiency. Hannah led the charge, her movements unnaturally precise. Every shot she fired found its mark, every motion optimized for survival. Carter had seen elite soldiers in action, but nothing like this. Whatever had happened to her, it had elevated her beyond human limits. She wasn't just fighting, she was overwhelming. The command center loomed ahead. The doors were reinforced, designed to withstand sieges, but nothing was impervious. Monroe set charges along the seams, stepping back as the countdown ticked toward 0. The explosion rocked the corridor, sending a shockwave through the complex. Smoke billowed from the breach. They stormed inside. Imperial officers scrambled to react, but they were too slow. Carter's team cut them down, securing the room in seconds. Dawson sprinted to the main console, his fingers flying over the alien interface. Hannah exhaled sharply, her posture rigid. "They're coming." Carter followed her gaze. Through the fractured doorway, the Empire's final wave advanced. Heavy troopers, bulky, armored, wielding plasma cannons capable of ripping through reinforced steel. No cover, no time. Carter didn't hesitate. "Hold the line." The room exploded into chaos. Plasma fire erupted, streaking across the space as Carter's team returned fire. Monroe unloaded his shotgun into the nearest trooper, the impact staggering but not stopping him. Brooks put a round through a weak point in another's armor, dropping him instantly. Hannah moved faster than humanly possible. She wove through the barrage, her rifle never missing its mark. She tore through the enemy ranks with an efficiency that defied logic. One moment, she was in front of Carter, covering his flank. The next, she was across the room, driving a blade into an enemy's throat. Dawson let out a sharp breath. Done. The facility's security grid flickered. The emergency evacuation systems came online. The lockdown disengaged. Their path was open. Carter didn't waste time. Move. They fell back, gunning down the last remnants of resistance as the facility's automated failsafe kicked in. Alarm screamed. The station's reactor destabilized. This place wasn't just being shut down, it was being erased. They sprinted through collapsing corridors, dodging falling debris, pushing toward the extraction point. The dropship was already inbound, its engines roaring against the station's atmosphere. A final stretch. A final push. The ship's ramp lowered. Monroe was the first to leap aboard, laying down cover fire. Brooks followed, then Dawson. Carter turned back, locking eyes with Hannah. For the first time since this nightmare began, there was uncertainty in her expression. He extended a hand. She hesitated, then took it. They launched into the void as the station detonated behind them, consumed in a firestorm that left nothing but silence. Hannah exhaled. Alive. Still standing. Carter looked at her. "Now we find out what the hell happened to you."